The land that is now called Israel has been ruled by 15 different groups in the last 3,700 years. These groups practiced many different religions, including both Judaism and Islam. Jewish people first inhabited the land 3,000 years ago, and Islamic Arabs first ruled the area about 1,400 years ago. From a historical perspective, both Jews and Arabs have had a claim to this land. The Israeli-Palestine issue has been an ongoing problem between Israeli Jews and Palestinian Arabs. The origin of the modern conflict occurred when Britain, who at the time had a big influence in the Middle East, promised land to the Jews as a place to serve as a homeland. But at the same time, Britain promised the Arabs an independent Arabic state across all of Arab areas in the Ottoman Empire. The main problem with this was that the Jews and Palestinians were both promised the same land in what is now known as Israel. From 1917 to 1948, under the British mandates, both parties were under British rule and under a single political entity called Palestine. Many Jews moved to Palestine in the mid-1940s to seek a new life after the Holocaust of World War II. In early 1948, Britain pulled out of the Middle East for financial reasons. Britain could not afford to support the area after the expenses it incurred during World War II. On May 14, 1948, Israel declared itself an independent state. Tensions were coming from many different angles. Soviet Russia began expanding its influence in the Middle East, especially in Egypt and Syria. Those countries began to expand their armed forces with the aid of Russia. The U.S. saw this as threatening and decided to supply Israel with anti-aircraft missiles and the necessary funding for war. This expansion of armed forces was causing tensions in the Middle East and was part of the Cold War between the U.S. and Russia. In 1967, the Israelis went to war with the Arabs in a war what was known as the Six-Day War. The war was sparked from Egypt's pan-Arabic leader, Nasser, because he ordered the withdrawal of UN peacemakers separating Israeli and Egyptian forces. When he did this, Egypt denied the Israelis access to the Red Sea. In June of that year, the Israelis launched a surprise attack on Egypt and Syria. The outcome of this war was that Israel captured the Golan Heights and Jerusalem. After this, Arabs began to acknowledge that armed conflict with Israel might not succeed. On August 20, 1993, Israel and the Palestinian Liberation Organization negotiated and made their first face-to-face agreement known as the Oslo Accords. The Oslo Accords gave each of the two parties the right to rule their own lands. It also called for Israeli defense forces to pull out of the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, which was land that was taken by Israel during the Six-Day War. After Israel's withdrawal from the Gaza Strip, Islamic political influence began to grow. An Islamic party called Hamas won an election in 2006 and gained control of the Gaza Strip. Up to the present day, there has still been a lot of tension between Palestinians and Israelis. The main type of violence between the two parties is terrorist attacks. One of the most well-known and notorious terrorist attacks was the capture and eventual murder of 11 Israeli athletes during the 1972 Olympic Games. Since the beginning of 2010, this very year, Palestine has launched over 520 rockets and mortars at Israel. According to a study conducted by the University of Haifa, 1 in every 5 Israelis has lost a relative or friend in a Palestinian terrorist attack. The conflict between Israel and Palestine is wide-ranging. The remaining issues are mutual recognition, borders, security, water rights, Israeli settlements, and legalities concerning refugees. The violence that results from these unresolved issues has prompted international actions such as numerous peace talks. The only Arab countries that have recognized Israel as a sovereign nation are Jordan and Egypt. Both of these peace treaties were brokered with the help of the U.S. presidents. Bill Clinton assisted with Jordan in Washington, D.C. in 1994. Jimmy Carter helped with Egypt's acceptance at the Camp David summit in 1978, and the peace treaty was signed in 1979. Current Secretary of State Hillary Clinton reopened Israel-Palestine peace talks last September after a several-year break. He met with Israeli President Benjamin Netanyahu last week on November 11th to urge Israel to stop construction of homes in disputed territories so that Palestinians will stay at the negotiating table. There has been much talk of two different types of solutions, a two-state solution and a one-state solution. A two-state solution would mean that Israel would remain the same and predominantly Jewish. Another state would be added to Western Palestine, one that would be mostly Arabics. Arabs that already live in Israel and Arab refugees would be granted citizenship in this new state if created. The majority of Palestinians do not accept the concept of two states. They don't embrace this idea because they want to have their own land and they don't want any of it to go to the Jews. Another possible solution is the one-state solution or a binational solution. A one-state solution proposes that the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and Israel combine their land together and everyone living there would be given citizenship and equal rights without regard to ethnicity or religion. Interest in a one-state solution is growing because the two-state approach has failed to accomplish a final agreement. Israel would lose its character as a Jewish state, and the Palestinians would fail to achieve their national independence within a one-state solution. This may not satisfy either Israel or the Palestinians. Clearly, a peaceful solution is very difficult and will require much compromise on both sides. The conflict has deep roots and so many people have lost their lives. Peace will be hard to achieve, but it will be worth it because many lives are and have been at stake. It is time to end the bloodshed in this historical land. Under the same sun,